Hello, soul friends. This is Miriam, and welcome back to my channel. Today's pick a card reading is a topic idea from my friend Lisa. Lisa, I have mentioned before, has a podcast called We're All Psychic. She also works with me on the Everclear platform as a reader, and she makes her own jewelry, and she's just an all-around awesome gal. So thank you, Lisa, for the topic. I will give you guys information on how to find her and what she does in the description box once I get all that information from her. So thank you for the topic, Lisa. Remember, no matter your individual beliefs, tarot or oracle reading is your spirit guides coming forward to give you advice, or it's just your subconscious mind helping you answer life's ponders. And no matter how you look at that, it is healthy and you are in the right place. So today we're going to be using this oracle deck and this tarot deck. And we're going to be looking at your parental wounds, or how you need to recover from the wounds of your parents, okay? So we're going to start with getting cards out of this, and then we'll move into picking your piles. So we shall commence live shuffling now. To the shuffling process. We all know how much fun this is. Oh. Group one's already starting to turn the tables on us, and we got to get 2 for each pile. I'm doing 3 for now. I'm kind of lazy these days. I'm like, you feel like not doing them at all. Maybe do just a short one, or do a 3 pile instead of a 4. You know what I mean? Okay. Get your oracle cards, and then we will be ready to roll. Ooh, I feel like I'm just going to take a bunch. A bunch. I'm getting excited now. Yeah. Okay. Anything else for group 2? Oh, yes, we do. Okay. Okie dokie. We always do what the guides tell us, right, guides? And they're like, yeah, no, that's not how it goes. Sometimes, occasionally you do what we tell you, Miriam. The rest of the time, it's usually you just causing troubles and then getting upset about your troubles. Yeah, that goes. Now group 2 has all the cards, it looks like. You're like, yeah, we're going to give more to that group. I'm like, okay. Okie dokie. I have to put my earbuds in because it's windy outside. I keep hearing my star on this side of the house smacking into the side of it with the wind. Group 1, you have this cute little peachy rock. Group 2, you have the sparkly citrine raw crystal thingy majigger. And wow! Group 3, you have this little stripy heart-shaped rock. All right, go ahead and pause if you need, and we will see you in your individual readings. Bye-bye. Hello, group 1. So if you picked the pinky peachy stone, let's go ahead and look at your overall wounds. Since 2 cards came out, maybe let's do one for your mom and one for your dad. But let's just see what they are first and see what I feel. Okay, 2 of Cups. And Queen of Cups. Is that Queen or King? Dang it, gotta go check the book already. I need words. Okay, so this is the Queen of Cups and the 2 of Cups. So one thing that popped into my mind with this one right here is that I feel like, the thing's gonna wiggle and drive me nuts. I feel like that some of you, that your parent wound was kind of from both of them equally and almost in partnership with each other in some way. So that's not to say that I feel like your trauma was that both your parents teamed up on you in some way and really viciously abused you, or let others abuse you or something along that line. If there is something that significant or that traumatic in there, then I'm so sorry that happened to you already. That's terrible. being from a rough childhood area myself growing up, and then being a teacher for 13 years really opens your eyes to how miserable some home lives can be. Okay. And I'm not really using mine in comparison, because I feel like in comparison to the ones that I've seen, that I still had a luckier childhood than a lot of other kids, like by so much of a comparison that I really can't complain, So anyway, I still do though. That's why we're doing this whole, we all get to complain about our parents today. This is what our whole reading's about. So, and no matter what, even if you had really good parents, they can still sometimes cause damage that they didn't mean to, and then you never tell them they did because you don't want to hurt their feelings and make them feel like a bad parent. Or maybe you do because you're like, hey, mom, they made me do dishes so much, that kind of deal. But in this particular case, what's sticking out to me the most is this idea, some of you may have been an only child, or some of you might have had some really, really close knit parents that were a team. You weren't just dealing with one of them at a time. You were dealing with both of them all the time, whether that was good, bad, or ugly, depending on your various situations, because I'm kind of picking up on a lot of them. From the really traumatic ones that we just talked about to the very mundane, you come home from school and they're sitting at the table waiting for you, the parents in Christine that have the kid as their only child, and he gets upset with them and is finally every time we have a discussion in here, I get outvoted 2-1 because I'm the only one, and then you two are always a team, right? And so that's kind of what I feel here. It's you might be an only child, or you might just be the scapegoated kid, or the kid that didn't get, a unit as much. You're the black sheep or whatever you want to call yourself. Okay. The forgotten kid, the silent kid, the one that was self-sufficient, so they paid attention to all the other kids, that kind of feeling. But I feel like those two were a total pair. All right. And so if your parents aren't together anymore, that was either how they were back in the beginning, or this just isn't your group, because I'm seeing a very, very strong unity between the two parents here. And it could be both dysfunctional and rather functional. Even a really functional group of or set of parents can still have a hard time with their kid because they're both so into each other, and then the kid's sitting there feeling like they're the odd man out because their parents are so tight and understand each other so well, and the kid's just kind of out on the outside. I'm sensing those kinds of things. You can't tell one, or they're going to tell the other one, right? You can't, even if you're an adult, right? And you're calling your mom and you're can you please not tell dad about this? That B is going to go do it. She's going to go tell. Or, your pops, he's going to go do that to you, right? It looks like in some respects with this card that the father was very much not submissive to, but very respecting of and protective of the mother aspect. So it might be one of those situations where it's you'd get home and they're oh, guess what your son did? And it's smacks you upside the head, what did you do to your mother? On your mother's birthday, I ought to kill you, kid, that kind of thing. So it's I don't know. I don't know if you guys had accents. I don't know where you're from. I don't know why you sounded like Tony Soprano just then. But your dad did sound like Tony Soprano just then. Anyway, let me know if your dad's voice sounded like Tony Soprano. That would be interesting. Some of your dads had a rockin' bod too. Look at this guy. Jeez Louise. That chick's yes, I'll accept my crown from you. Chiseled specimen of man. All right. Your mom in this card here, I feel like it's almost like she's one of those super moms. And I feel like they've been together for a long time. And I feel like the super mom aspect, again, could be very from the highest functioning to infamous dysfunctional. Okay, is what I'm getting here. So that's why it's this mix, and I can't really get into details with each one. Because the traumatic stuff is too traumatic to disclose on YouTube. And I'm sure those of the people here that experienced that, they were there. They probably don't need me to rehash it for them. Okay. Just take it as confirmation that you're in the right spot. If your parents were dysfunctional, but they were a duo, right? And they could have been a dysfunctional duo towards each other as well and still been that team. I'm trying to think of a scenario for that, but I can't. Because I don't really know if I know any couples that have that dynamic between them, but I feel it in the I can taste it in the flavors of the energy. It tastes like it. Okay. So I feel like she's very highly respected, highly regarded. Like, you better thank your mother. You better be grateful to her. No matter what you've done, it could have been a little bit better, you know? Like, you might have even been like, thanks, Mom, so much. I'm like, okay, and what do you say to your dad? You know, or okay, and you know, that kind of feeling. It feels like you can't quite live up to her. The dad can't either. Nobody can. So I'm seeing like a real strong matriarchal like influence, but it could also be dysfunction. Like, she could totally be like the backbone of the whole family. Everybody, you know, cuddles around her skirts to listen to her read stories at Christmas time or whatever. Very old fashioned, you guys. That's a really, let me come spend Christmas at your house. Where did that scenario come from? Oh, my grandma. My grandma would make us sit around her in a little circle and she'd tell us a story at Christmas time. And it was always the little match girl. And I won't spoil the ending, but it's not the happiest little Christmas story, guys. Anyway, it's a rough deal to lay on a 5-year-old. And she wasn't a dysfunctional, like, grandma. She was one of those little timid grandmas, you know, that she, like, baked cookies, but, like, also, like, didn't speak very much, you know, except for when she read us that story. So, like, she never yelled at us. She never did any of that stuff. If she ever yelled at me, I probably would have just died of shame, because that poor little lady having to yell at somebody would have probably hurt her more than anyone. But anyway, enough about all that. Those little ramblings, though, a lot of times have messages in there for people. People have been telling me that. So go ahead and let me know if that ever happens. Like, hey, that one pointless rant you went off on actually had some messages in there, Miriam. Good job. Yeah, it's what I do. So it could be something like, there's some kind of honor that she holds that you can't ever live up to, but like, I feel that even if it's dysfunctional. So like, I'm picturing like, and I can't name drop anyone because I had a real life and there's real people out there that might have real internet, but like, you know, the mom, if you're like a 90s or an 80s kid, the mom that smoked cigarettes that was like short and little and like kind of heavy on top, but like pencil thin on her bottom, and like, was like, I mean, shorter than me, and I'm only 5'2", like 4'11", you know, and she talks like this, you know, she like loves Jesus, and she like gets drunk and tells you about how much she likes Jesus, and then like explains what a good mother she is, and you know, stuff like that. You know, if she feels like she's been disrespected at all, even in maybe thought or form, she'll tell everybody and be like, you don't do that to me. That kind of dysfunctional mom. I feel her in here. Not for all of you. I feel like also like, some of you might have a mom who's like legit, like the whole like community like knows her, or she has like a community following and she's like won awards, you know, she's won several awards and been recognized and put in the paper a few times. That kind of mom, you know, the mom that kind of deserves that crown. The other one that doesn't, that's dysfunctional, she still thinks she does. Okay. And the family still treats her like she does. That's what I'm seeing with this. Okay. So the wound that they bestowed on you, it's huge and it varies across all of you guys. But the main thing that I'm seeing with this particular parental situation right here is that your parents were in it together, and there was this reverence for your mother, even by your dad. So I think he answered to her. So if your dad was like an overbearing, like, guy that your mom didn't ever want to like say boo to, you would probably need to get a different group. because this is totally what I'm seeing here with this. So it's like, it could range anywhere from like them teaming up on you on like who you dated, them teaming up on you on what school you went to, what community activities you got into, your friends, your everything, your tastes, okay? Simple little things that are just like normal things that happen in a family, right? They were loving, they were good to you, they might still be together, all that stuff. There is one little thing in here that I'm also feeling. Some few in here might have a mother who has passed away, and the father figure in that relationship has never gotten over her, and talks about her like she was like a saint kind of situation. And maybe she was, right? But like, you might not be able to live up like, oh, your mother would be so disappointed in you if she could see what you did, that kind of stuff. I feel like that sort of thing, spicy stuff, like very, very varied. I feel like I get a lot of different people's things. But like, I also feel like love and everything. Like, I don't feel like any type of like, trauma event that was like singular or significant. I feel like this was like I feel like there were probably significant traumas that were poignant and singular throughout some of the more dysfunctional groups. But for the dysfunctional ones, it's like, it can range from like something as bad as that to them just not being like, just like a regular dysfunctional family, like no, they've committed no crimes, but they're just kind of like creating scars that like go with you forever, even though they didn't really intend to or want it to. It's just kind of how things turn out because people are flawed, right? And they might have had flawed parentage themselves. The other thing is like with the regular people, you could have had a very, very well regulated, functional home. Like, a lot of you could be very, very, lucky compared to others, I guess, when it comes to like who your parents are. But regardless, the scar is still there from like them always being like two against you. Okay. So whether it was just you all by yourself, which I feel like it was in a lot of cases, for whatever reason, there's lots of different reasons that could be as well. But it's like, you always felt a little bit on the outs or at a disadvantage with your parents because of that. And that manifested into a lot of different things that range anywhere from being really relatively benign and just kind of like hurtful and upsetting to full on, you have to deal with this for the rest of your life because it affected you that deeply. Okay, let's look at your... So that's a little check-in. Make sure you're in the right group and that you're dealing with the right stuff, if that sounds right. Let's go ahead and see what your guides have to say about how to heal these issues. Creativity. I feel like these cards are going to be interesting. The advice they're going to give you is going to be weird choices. Observation. Soar. Self-interest. Oh, I always get too many and then I can't fit them into the screen. And then I have three more down here. We have fog, distraction, and rebirth. Okay, let's start with these ones before I lay those ones on top. Advice on healing the wounds, advice on the situation, 2 bits of wisdom from your guides. Your guides are showing something about... It's almost like they're telling me something about how your parent, even the dysfunctional people, and I'm not saying you're dysfunctional, the parents that were more dysfunctional than the ones that weren't in this group. For the more dysfunctional parents, I'm still seeing the same kind of message. And that's that you were actually noticed more than you thought. Okay, you were noticed for your creativity. People observe you more than you think, including your parents. And they're actually very pleased with you and how you've accomplished a lot in some way. And part of that is because of self-interest, okay? And some people think of self-interest as being selfish, but I think of all life as a balance. So like in this particular instance, it feels like some of you have already gotten creative and interested because of that feeling like you were kind of on your own. I feel this like, then I'll be alone and I'll still kick some butte, right? You guys can team up on me on Monopoly and I'm still going to kick your butts, like something along that line, right? Some of you are learning that you can get creative, you can make choices, you can soar to different heights by being interested in yourself and letting go of that separateness, unfair feelings that your parents left with you. A lot of you might feel like you still have to check in with them on everything. They might very well expect you to do that. I'm going to give you I'm going to let you in on a big secret. It's super, super secret, but it's super cool. At least in the country that I live in for now. When you turn 18, you don't have to do what your parents say anymore. I know, it's awesome. So you can always kind of let them learn new boundaries, okay? Like for example, I actually haven't done this too much, but right before my husband and I got married, somebody was like, oh, it's all going to change. One of our parents came, I'll change once you're married, all that lovey stuff is going to stop because we were being affectionate towards each other. God forbid. And that was the comment we got, right before we got married. And I actually called that one out and said, let me ask you something there, whichever parent I'm talking about. How many marriages have you had, right? And how long did each one of those last? And I was like, so you weren't actually married to anybody who was actually with us for as long as they were. So there you go. Does that make sense? It's like this idea of like, because somebody's like older than you, like your parents, they think that they know everything that's going to happen to you in the emotional and like life changing and life progression sense. Like they know what getting older feels like, what you're going to go through there. They might even know you so well that they know what things are going to bother you the most. Like maybe it's your hair falling out, or maybe it's gaining weight, or, your body changing after kids, or, whatever, wrinkles, health getting worse, losing your hearing, that kind of deal. They might know you so well that they know exactly which one of those things worries you or bothers you the most, right? But at the same time, they aren't you. And so like, yes, you should always respect your older elders and take advice from them and honor your parents and all that. But in this particular case, our parent that was lecturing us about what was going to happen to us after we got married was a moot point, because that parent hadn't been married to anybody for as long as we had even been dating each other. So see how that works? And it's not like it was that big of a deal. It was just one of those little comments that families make to each other. But it was one of the things that I was like, hang on now, like, let's not go there anymore. It was sort of like that point in your life where you realize like that you're, 25 and you actually didn't get pregnant and you actually didn't ruin your life. And now everybody can stop telling you not to do that because you made it to 25. You didn't ruin your life, right? Like, just like back off, Samantha or whatever. Back off, Carl, okay? All the Samanthas and Carls are like, I'm not following this side anymore. She always uses my knee or hurts my feelings. I'm not like that. Okay, what else? I also feel like there's some hard choices your parents made that you don't know about, and like you could never understand it if you knew about it anyway. But it's a choice that they made because of love for you. And I'm not saying that that excuses any of their stupid behaviors and bad judgments and wounds that they caused you. But your guides are wanting you to know that. So that might be something that you're like, what? I don't know. But the self-interest idea of breaking away from that, not prison, but it's constrained because you're outnumbered, right? So, or you have like, even if you weren't outnumbered, the parents are the ones that are in charge and you've got two of them. You can't even manipulate one against the other because they're both together all the time. Okay. Okay. So let's look at fog and distraction and rebirth. I feel like when you've started asserting your self-interest to your parents, and I'm talking like, it could be little things like that, like me saying, wait a minute, you were never married to somebody even as long as we've been dating each other. How do you know when the loviness is going to stop? P.S. It didn't stop, by the way. We're still both super gross for each other. But anyway, not to gross you guys out. But you guys do it to me all the time. So here we are. I'm just kidding. You don't, because I refuse to read about romance. But I don't refuse. I just don't like to do it. And then I call you gross. If the message is romance, I'll give you the message. They might accuse you of like being deluded, having a foggy brain. Are you on something? Is there something wrong with you? Right? If you have that teen parent that we're always like teaming up and having you sit down and have a talk with like preemptive talking, just in case you decide you're gonna, hey, I don't know if you realize, kid, but pregnancy is a thing and we don't want you to do it. That kind of deal. When you start doing your self-interest, if you haven't already, those of you that have, they may have already started to kind of be like, oh, you're going off the path, you're being disrespectful, you're doing all the, stuff. I'm going to call it right now. If I thought any of you were being actually disrespectful towards your parents, I would call it out and say, but this is about wounds they've done to you. And so I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing mainly just this being the issue. Of course, you've had instances where you like messed up and disappointed them in you or hurt them in some way. Nobody's perfect. We all do our things. But what I'm seeing is them sort of being like, wait a second, what are you doing? They're splitting away from us. And they probably had like long, lengthy, because they're such a pair, long, lengthy conversations about what they were going to do when they had you and like how they were going to like make sure things turned out okay. And like how awful it would be if their kid turned against them, or like comparing you to other kids who had already turned against their parents and being like, oh, not us. That's not going to happen. Like that kind of deal. And so they might accuse you of being like distracted or like being foggy or like not seeing the way clearly, but really what you're doing is you're heading to a rebirth, okay, a new beginning with them. And I feel like that's because, geez, that card's like, whew. I don't know if any of you can feel that. If you guys can feel this card through the screen, let me know in the comments section, because it's like, I can't even touch it without shaking. Yeesh. Okay, hang on. All right. I'm like, I don't want to touch it. It doesn't feel bad. It's just potent. Those of you that haven't done this yet, this is the step to a new rebirth with your parents. Okay. Those of you that have already started, you're already on your way. You're like halfway there. Okay. It's not an ending to what you have with your parents. It might feel like that to them, especially if they're like really, really close knit about this situation. But you are just setting new boundaries with them. You're not a kid anymore, right? You're an adult, because this channel's for adults, right, guys? And so you're at least old enough to know how to fake your age. So that makes you a little bit old enough to know. I'm just kidding. If you're not 18, get out of here. Go. Skedaddle, kid. Scramsies. But anyway, this is a new start to you being, you're going to become a man. Or a woman, or an adult. Okay, so that's what I have for you. that was fun. If this was helpful, I can't imagine why it would be. Go ahead and give me some comments on how it was in the comments section. Give me topic ideas there as well. If you would like to book a private reading with me, there are ways to do so in the description box. And we will see you in the next one, my friends. Take care. Bye. Hi, group 2. So if you picked the cute little sparkly one, let's look and see what's going on with those parents of yours. You know, off the top of my head, I don't even know which card that is. I'm gonna have to look it up. I think that one's the Sun. I really need to brush up on my Roman numerals. I always have to like count them out in my brain because I can't remember just which shape is which and then which one on which side means which. And I'm still leagues ahead of what most people, like I swear the students I had when I was teaching most of them did not know Roman numerals anymore. Okay, we have the Devil and we have the Sun. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so right off the bat, I have some addictive or addict parent vibes for many of you. I'm also feeling that some of you, if it wasn't addiction to like a substance, that some of you may have had a parental figure. This feels like the more dominant one in the relationship, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the dad. Because, hey, we could all have, a lot of us by now in this day and age could have like, you know, step parents that are all sorts of different combos of like which one's the dominant one and which one's not and which gender they are, right? It feels like, in this case, it feels like it's mostly fathers, but I think that's just because of statistics. I feel like you guys had an addicted parent, and the only way that things were able to be resolved is for that other parent to leave that one. And that's like the little, like, the Sun is a very positive card, but notice how this person's very much like striking out, almost like the Fool, and like possibly leaving something behind. So that kind of gives me the idea that in some of your cases, the parental wound was that there was a divorce and the more dominant person in the relationship was the one that got left. And, you know, it was like the decision of this parent to go, right? And so that was like better for this parent and the kids that went with that parent, but it was definitely not good for this person. And they might have had a really rough time after that divorce, okay? For those of you who have parents that don't or didn't divorce, but this is still sounding like there was an addiction. For some of you, your parent overcame an addiction. And they're doing fine now as far as like being successful overcoming. It doesn't have to be an addiction. Like maybe they were like abusive in some capacity and then they learned and they stopped or something along those lines. Or they got really dysfunctional for a while and then they figured it out and stopped. Or like maybe they were very codependent on like their people that they would date as a single parent. And then they realized that and stopped. Okay. It could be any kind of like behavior that was not serving them and was actually kind of keeping them oppressed in some way, that they overcame that. And now they're doing okay, but because of that whole thing happening, you know, that's the wound. There were things that happened during this period, and now ways that we deal with this period with which has caused you harm in some way, okay? Could be bad memories, could be past traumas, could be issues with like forgiveness or trust now, right? If they've changed, trusting them. I feel like for some of you that were in the first category of like it being like a divorce, I feel like a lot of you don't even have that other parent in your life. Maybe they're not even alive, or maybe you don't even know if they're alive or not. They might be in prison, some of them. It's a lot of energies in these piles. And so if I say something that didn't happen in your family, don't be like, oh, that's what happened, because that's so many different things. Or if I gloss over you, I apologize. Let's see. Is that it, Spirit? Okay. I think that's it. Let's go ahead and look at some tarot. Wait. Did one of you or some of you leave your parents behind because they were oppressive? I feel like that might be a thing too. And so you struck out on your own very young is also coming through. So that's a little energy check on your groups, making sure that you're in the right section. If none of that matches you, you can stick around and see if these match you a little better, but chances are you might just want to pick a different group. Okay, let's go ahead and look at what your guides have to say about this. Teamwork. Growth. Yeah. Trust. Remember talking about the loss of trust in those situations. Or like learning how to relax into trust. Stability. Yeah. Wrath. This is the first time I've ever done like a family reading like this, and it's really interesting. So the third card here, or the last three cards that we have here, I can't fit in the screen, so we're going to show them to you, but then I'm going to set them aside and we'll get them on top here in a second. We have anomaly, forgiveness, and mischief. What is with the mischief cards? If you've been watching this channel since early October this year of 2024, how many mischief cards have we seen at this point? I know that I'm present in all the videos and you guys might just pick one and you don't see the rest, but my gosh, like even different decks of cards, I'm like, and here's the mischief card again. So anyway, all right. So let's start with the parents who were addicted but recovered. We're going to do that first, and then we'll do the single parent because the other one's totally like not there anymore for all the reasons we already said. And that parent got left because of their devil energy, right? And then, and the other one doing well when they left, right? And then we have, what was the last one? You leaving them. Okay. And if I ever forget, just tell me in the comment section, you know, like, hey, you forgot about that one group, remember? Because a lot of times, if you do that, I'll be like, oh yeah, and I was going to say this, but then I like got Maisie-minded and I forgot. Just to add, you know, just tell me nicely. If you tell me all condescendingly, then it'll hurt my feelings and then I'll get mad. Because that's how I deal with hurt feelings, is I get mad. Okay. And then I'll say something snarky and smart alecky back to you. And we don't want to start that dysfunction in our little family now, do we? They're like, oof, she's calling me a family. I need to get out of here. Anytime people who aren't your family are like, we're your family now. Like, be wary, man. I'm just saying, like, I feel like it's like not the best flag to see on a play. That's just me. But that's only because of my own personal experiences with those things and being like, yeah, that didn't work out the way they made it seem like it would. Okay. So for the parent who was an addict of some kind, but they recovered and now they're in the sun, right? And that parent could be a single parent. It could be your double parents and just one of them. It could be two of your parents got sober together, you know, stuff like that. But in any event, I don't know what kind of red flowers those are. Are those poppies? They seem significant to me. So do all the flowers in these cards. So if you know what, including the dandelions and the cherry blossoms, just so we all know. Dang it, now I have to pause. Terrible at where I left off at, but I think I left off with talking about the addicted parent who is no longer practicing that. I feel like for those people that had that parent that's recovering, that, you know, there's been a lot of healthy work done, like teamwork, It looks like they brought in outside help even. That could have been like getting more involved in like a community situation, like a program, right? Like AA or NA or something like that. But also like a lot of people, when they let go of bad things for them, they'll go to like spiritual ceremony of some kind. The growth card shows that there's tremendous growth in your parent because of this, and probably in your family as well. There's been a growth of trust. Okay. Stability is there, but there's still this wrath that you feel at like maybe how they were before. Okay. Or, and if you're like one of those people that is lucky enough to know what a dry drunk is, what a dry drunk situation is, that's like an AA term for a person who quits drinking alcohol, but they don't, like, their behavior doesn't get better. And it's because they don't really explore why they were doing that to themselves in the first place, kind of situation. And the character defects remain. Okay, so like they're sober all the time, but they still fly off the handle and get angry, or they still get abusive, or they still, you know what I mean? So I think for some of you that there was a significant improvement in that parent, but that their wrath, that anger part stayed there possibly, or is still there, right? For others, the anger for you is still there, and for some of you, it's even both. Okay, so that's for the recovery crowd. Now let's get into the single parent that left the devil energy parent behind, okay? Once again, they probably brought in outside help and got like, you know, like their extended family involved, or like the community or a group of friends, or like even one singular like parental figure like stepped up and helped your other parent tremendously with like you and your siblings, etc. and so forth. It brought out a lot of growth, not just for you and your siblings, if you did have siblings, but also for your parent who was recovering from leaving, right? And figuring out why they were in that situation in the first place, those kinds of situations. It grew trust, and you might really trust those outside people that came to help, like almost like parents, because they gave you a lot of stability, made you feel like you had a good home, okay? But for that group in particular, there's a wrath still. And it feels like wrath against maybe that parent who's no longer present, whether they aren't around because they're just too dysfunctional to be around, right? So they might slip in and slip back out again, right? You may have given them chances and then they screwed up again, you know, those kinds of deals. It could also be a situation where you've never met this person. They were just already out of the picture by the time your mom, you know, was telling you about how things went down, right? Or your dad. Sorry if I keep mixing up the genders. You know, it's just that nuclear family thing just really stuck with me. Growing up in the 80s of like the mom leaving the dad because he was abusive kind of like thing was a storyline we got told quite a bit. And historically that was just because it was becoming more acceptable to become divorced. So people in unhappy situations were just more apt to be like, I'm going to go ahead and do this, even if society doesn't like it, you know, or whatever. All right, moving along. So that creates stability in your life, but you still have this wrath towards what happened before in some respect. Some of you might be mad that your parent left the other parent. Like maybe it feels like an abandonment and that you got forced to abandon them too. Totally understandable. And please know that I know that these are childhood wounds. Like I realize that you guys aren't like sitting at home like the two guys in Step Brothers and being like, yeah, I don't know, conjure up a scene from that of like a dysfunctional adult that's depending on their parents way too much still. But as far as you being wrathful towards anybody, it could be a little bit of wrath towards them for leaving. It could be wrath for them staying or getting into that situation in the first place. It could be that, why does The Sopranos keep coming up in my mind? I mean, that show is all about family. All kinds of family. You got your regular family, and then you got your other family. The one you do the business with. You know that family? Anyway. Oh. like a person comments, so like, my family was in the mob. This is really hard for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. No, I'm totally, if they were, man, I'd love to hear about it, because that'd be an interesting tale to tale, but you're probably not allowed to. There may have been oaths involved that your parents weren't able to tell you half the stuff they were up to if they were in that business. But that being said, we have wrath towards that person for leaving, maybe abandoning the other parent, wrath towards the situation in general. Like, why do you guys suck so bad when Jamie down the street there is doing just fine with their parents and never had a problem? Why can't I have that? That kind of situation. Why don't you make decisions like their parents did? And it might not even be wrath at your parents. It could just be wrath at the situation. Like, why did this have to happen? Okay. The other one that I'm feeling for the people who have a single parent, I feel like your single parent people might have a lot of wrath towards their ex for various reasons. And they might take that wrath out on you sometimes for being that other parent's kid. I don't feel like it's super excessive, but it's enough to cause like this wrath, this feeling of like anger and, wrath is more than just anger, so it's like, that's that deeper wound that like, it can feel like that even when it's simple little things, like you joke around with somebody and call them a dork so many times that pretty soon it starts to hurt their feelings, even though the person didn't mean it, that kind of feeling. Then you leaving your parents' scenarios. I feel like those of you that left your parents' situation because it was dysfunctional or devil energy parenting, you kind of have created a new family of like people that you're not related to, right? This little hawk is here with all these ravens or crows. And it helped you grow. It built a life for you. It helped you with like learning to trust, learning to love, learning to be grateful, learning to have stability, learning to build a home. But at the same time, you still have that anger and wrath at having to, that things were that bad that you had to leave, right? Okay, let's get to the next set of cards, and then we'll go through each one of those, and then we will be done. Okay. Okay, focus, Miriam. I was just thinking about something I needed to do with the intro and got all distracted. I'm like, what am I doing? Okay. So for the parents who were addicted but recovering, your guides are showing ultimately that everybody can heal from this, okay? That we all have our own little unique situations, right? And that we all have the capacity to forgive, and that forgiveness is the key to like healing this wound. And I'm not saying that means you have to excuse their behavior. And I'm also saying, I'm going to add the part that most people don't add when you're talking to a professional about forgiveness work. If you can't right now, do not beat yourself up that you can't forgive somebody right now. I firmly believe that forgiving someone is like falling in love. You either do or you don't. I don't know how you can make yourself do either one. I have gotten to the point where I got so sad or hurt or tired of dealing with the pain from something that I was able to let go and accept that it happened the way it happened. There's nothing we can do and it's time to move on. But I still never, ever, ever, ever told that person, I forgive you. Even if I felt it in my heart, like down the road after they died. I don't hold a grudge. I don't hold grudges at all. But I feel like the forgiveness will come. I feel like it will come. And it's on your timeline. It's not going to be like, I can't tell you when it's going to be for everybody. It's going to be different for everyone. I feel like some of you are already on your way because of how well things have gone since this happened, from all the stability and the extra help from others. But there's still that wrath and that mischief, energy that I feel like is always just going to kind of be there, right? And that your parent if they had some kind of an addiction or a bad behavior that was habitual, like the devil energy suggests, then they could, even if they don't slip and like start doing like, opioids again or whatever, right? Like, or start drinking again or whatever, that they still have like these like mischievous setbacks, that they get mischievous, that they get self-sabotaging. Okay. They might even do it in a sense of fun, but really it's them sort of self-sabotaging. That could be something you could like read up on as part of their recovery process and learn about them, and not use it to like throw it in their face, like to win an argument or anything like that, but to like set them down when everything's calmed down and be like, hey mom, like, I'm sorry that we had our little spat, but like, can we talk about it calmly now, and kind of point out, I feel like you were kind of picking at me there to start a fight. And isn't that kind of something that people that are addicted kind of do sometimes, something along those lines. I feel like it's going to be okay. With the single parent who left, I feel like you feel like things worked out pretty much for the best. And that in some cases you feel very lucky, right? I also think that you feel very unique in your situation, of like there was some sort of thing about it that made it unique. Maybe it was something that ended up in the newspaper. I don't know. But like something along those lines feels like more like a watershed moment of some sort for some people. That's like an anomaly. That's like not a typical case. And I feel like the key to your forgiveness, or the key to the wrath situation, is forgiveness for you as well. Forgiveness to the person that caused the leaving, forgiveness for the person who had to leave, forgiveness for yourself for having to leave or not being able to deal with the situation properly, etc. and so forth. The mischief card is throwing me a little for this like group, and I'm trying to figure it out. If you're in the group where the person that they left does come back in and again, I feel like they come in and stir up mischief. And your guides are saying that like being able to get to a point where you can even forgive that too is like a pretty big step, but it would be like very healing for you. And so here's the deal. If I'm saying, oh my gosh, you have to forgive, but then at the same time I'm saying, but if you can't right now, don't worry about it, because you can't, right? All I can suggest, because I'm very much one of those people that forgiveness is an organic thing that happens to me. It's not something I can choose. And so I can want it so bad and still not be able to do it. And so that type of energy, I feel like, what am I trying to use your words, Miriam? Like, if you can't forgive, you can't. So like the only way that you can work towards it or like try to make it happen, in my opinion, is to whatever gods you pray to. You say, hey, this is eating me up inside and causing wrath and it's destructive. I would like to forgive. If you could please find a way to make that happen for me, that would be wonderful. Okay. And I know that sounds like a very meh, sounds as useful as praying, doesn't it? I was one of those kids that I prayed for something really hard when I first found out what prayer was, and it didn't happen. And I was like, this is BS, man. This crap doesn't work at all. Like, and so I had to throw myself into other means of spirituality to make me feel like I was doing more, I guess. I don't know, but it's either going to happen or it won't. So just asking for that, to be ready for it, or for it to come to you sooner rather than later, or something along those lines. Or saying, making little deals with yourself if you don't really pray or whatever, making little deals like, okay, if I start to feel like it might be getting there, I'm going to lean into that forgiveness feeling and see what it feels like, right? I'm going to lean into it and see what it's like, and not worry about looking like a pushover, or not worry about, And I'm not saying go to somebody and forgive them and let them just keep doing all the same stuff. That's being a pushover, okay? Feeling like a pushover and being one are two different things. Sometimes it feels like if we're just like letting ourselves feel forgiveness that we're being a pushover, but that's not the case, okay? And I know you know that. All right. And then you leaving them. Those of you that left your parents, you know, you do have kind of, it's like it's like being an orphan, only you're not really an orphan, right? Like you have parents out there and you just can't be around them for some reason, okay? Or you had to leave them early or whatnot. I think that you are at least getting towards, some of you are already kind of there, of realizing how unique and special you are, that you were able to do that when so many people couldn't, okay? And I'm not saying that it's a big mark on a kid to run away from home and leave their parents. I'm not saying you guys ran away from home. But, you know, to cut ties with the people in your lives that are almost like obliged to be there, right? It can be scary. It can make you feel like you're an orphan or feel like you're all alone in the world. And that makes you feel different, right? But you also see it as sort of being kind of unique and special and having an advantage in certain areas because of it. The mischief card for you is also kind of throwing me. I feel like your guides are kind of just saying that the anomaly of you in that third group of people is that you might look like you've already forgiven because you might have a really wicked, awesome sense of humor or a mischievous side, and people don't realize like how deep you are. That's coming through. What else, Spirit? It's a weird card for that group. I think your guides are just saying that once you forgive, there won't be thoughts that are like mischievous to you. Right? Thank you. Okay. And I think that is all I have for you, my group 2. So if this was helpful, or if it resonated in any way, tell me how in the comment section. Give me topic ideas there as well. If you'd like to book a private reading with me, there are ways to do so in the description box. We will see you in the next one. Bye, 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 bye. Hi, group 3. So if you picked the little stripy heart rock, let's go ahead and look at what your parents did to you. What did they do? All right, we have 8 of Pentacles. And the Knight of Cups. So what I'm feeling right off the bat here is, I feel like this is like one of the more mellow of the piles. So if you're like, my childhood was an absolute nightmare of epic proportion, maybe stick around for the energy check here, but you might not be in the right pile because this feels a little bit less severe, I guess, in the situations. I feel like in this particular instance, the wound is that one or both of your parents worked too much and that they offered too much of themselves to other people. Okay. So I'm getting a sense of like, maybe you had parents who were like social workers or like cops or, you know, a state police detective or a surgeon or, you know, that kind of deal. Just work. And then even when they had free time, it was like, oh, I have to do that benefit, or, oh, I have to bake those cookies aren't for you. They're for the church. You know, that stuff. Right. And you're like, man, what did the church do that was so great that they get all my cookies, right? Gosh, dang it. But anyway, that's pretty much what I'm feeling. It's like they were very busy doing their life's work of some kind. And part of that did have a lot to do with, you know, your upbringing and how well you were provided for. Okay. And I'm not saying that you were all like super well off. Some of these parents might have been like working just to make it paycheck to paycheck. And part of the reason why they were never there is because they had 2 jobs, you know, or that kind of thing. And it just seems like when they had a moment, they would give it to other people instead of to you. Okay, that's the main thing that I'm feeling from this pile. It's sort of a neglect feeling. Okay, where was I? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So if you're not fitting into that category, I would say you're definitely not in the right group if those don't resonate with you. Because that is largely what I'm getting from that. I also feel like with this card, that I feel like an environmental factor. Like, see how they're looking up at the sky and that part of the sky looks kind of weird and funky compared to the rest of the sky? Maybe they're like a person that, you know, works with the environment. Like, I don't know, like my mom used to fight forest fires, like something like that. Or like, you know, some kind of environmental protection kind of stuff. Yeah. All right, let's look at what else your guides want us to look at. Trap. Oh, interesting card. Dawn. That's pretty. Look at those pretty flowers. Anticipation. Risk. Community. And we'll put this one when we get to it. Distance. Okay. Okay, so this one, for some reason in this group, there's been a couple of differences in the way the cards have been coming out, the way your guides are talking about this. And the other two groups, they had mostly like how things are now, advice on how to deal with how things as they are now, etc. and so forth. But with you, I still feel like there's it's like it's not over for you yet. You're still very much in the midst. Like, even if you're an adult, they might still be very much in their thing that they're doing. Like, I honestly, like, I feel like some of you actually had like a parent that had to go and like accept awards or like do speeches, or and maybe was even in the public eye even more than that, like a government position or something. But you're, you know, in community work for sure. And I feel like that also brings about like risks to you even today, because they're so ingrained in the community that you are attributed to that parent, even though you're your own separate person. The community knows who you are because of your parent. It like reaches out farther for you because so many people know who this parent is or depend on them in some way. Okay. And so if they're not like in the public eye, like how we think of being in the public eye, they're at least a like public figure in your community or some kind. And your guides are saying that makes you feel trapped sometimes. Sometimes you feel like you were born into this trap because all this stuff was already happening and then you came along and it's like you don't even get a chance to like stand out or shine or even get attention to know how you want to shine, right? They may have promised you a bunch of times that things are going to get better after this business deal or after this trip or after this, you know, benefit or after whatever, right? Sorry, that was a client call. Anytime you hear me go, oh, and then you see the camera flipping around, it's because somebody's calling and I'm grabbing my phone so that it doesn't miss the call before I can answer it. Because my phone, no matter what I do with the settings, will not just let the phone ring while I'm recording videos. I'm like, they are used to the phone ringing. Just do it. It won't do it. So anyway, and then I miss a call. It's no bueno for business. So yeah, they may have promised that things were going to get better. But then everything just kind of stays the same, maybe even got worse as things progressed or new projects got taken on. New expenses may have happened. So like, even if like your parent was very, very successful and making like really good money, a lot of times that just like creates needing to generate more, right? Because your bills get bigger when your paycheck gets bigger, no matter what. And so there might have been like new, it's just like famous people. They're like, man, I got to do that stupid rom-com because, it was in my contract if I wanted to do Dark Knight, like that kind of deal. And so anyway, it feels like that's something that never really happened. And so you feel trapped in that life with them. Even as adults, you feel like you maybe see a glimpse of dawn, but then next thing you know, and you have some anticipation for that, but then it's anticipation for the next big thing, right? It also feels sucky to you because whatever position your parents have, when they take risks, you also assume those risks by association to them, okay? So if you want to think about like public figures that have kids, right? They're always going to have to kind of deal with that shadow of their, and it's not even the shadow of like, oh, I'm never going to live up to all their accomplishments. That's like the easiest hurdle in that whole like dysfunctional bunch. The other part is always being associated with them with anything that's negative towards them, okay? Or any big decision that they make actually ultimately affecting the course of your life outcome can also be part of the burden that we share when we're in a family with people. And it's a burden that we share when we get parents. If you think about the burden of, like arranged career or arranged marriage, and that's something that Westerners don't do as much. It's implied, but it's not like enforced all the time, right? And so it sort of feels like you're trapped there, and that, like say like if your parents got ruined or there was a huge scandal, like you would be a part of that. It doesn't matter what. If they have enemies, well, now the enemies are your enemies, right? And so, it might be like a lawyer type situation where like people have been threatened, etc. and so forth. Yeah. And just being like, they already know you because of who your parent is. Good or bad. Okay. And last but not least, so your guides are showing distance being kind of the answer. So like maybe distancing yourself in some way. And I'm not saying to cut off your parents. And I'm not saying to, stand up to them or yell at them or have a big like watershed moment with them. But distance can be done slowly, right? It can be done kind of like more gently, right? And it doesn't have to be distance that you do from withdrawing. It can be distance that you do by going towards something else that's just in the opposite direction of them. My hand is like sticking to this card. What do you guys want me to tell them about this card, Spirit? Some of you, there's a person named Dawn, and your guides want me to tell you something about them. That person's an alliance for you. It could also just be the new dawn of a new day, that you have like a new alliance coming in. It could be like a partner that kind of like swoops in and you end up creating your own little life, okay? But you don't even have to wait for your allies to show up, okay? Start doing your own thing like this little crow was, and eventually you're going to find your niche. You're going to find that distance from your parents. You're going to find that separateness and that ability to be your own person. And with that, I want to get you another card because the other group got that many cards. I want to make sure you do too. Open-hearted. I feel like in some cases, not all, but in some of your parents are more open-hearted than you think, and that actually sitting them down and having a calm, upfront, honest conversation about how you're impacted by all this is something that could actually help you, okay, like opening up your heart to them. It could also be that you need to open up your heart to somebody else, somebody like a, and I'm not saying you need therapy, but like sometimes it just helps to go talk to somebody, right? And have like a non-judgmental, non-involved person give you some like, some encouragement, some love, some whatever, all right? And that is what I have for you. So if this was a reading that resonated with you, tell me how in the comment section. If you would like to give me a topic, you can put those ideas there in the comment section as well. Thank you, Lisa, for the topic idea. And if you'd like to book a private reading, we will have ways that you can do that and book with me in the description box also. Okay. Thank you for being here, you guys. We will see you in the next one. Bye. 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 Bye.